Next segment is, I guess, talking about the Mavs' chances of making the playoffs, or even the play-in, to be honest. Let's not even discuss the playoffs. Are they even going to make the play-in? Which, again, this is another fall from grace. Like, Western Conference Finals with a lesser supporting cast, you could say, obviously, adding Kyrie Irving, you think having those two as a duo, you'd automatically be contending for a top seed in the West and, being nearly favourite for the Western Conference. And it's just been a very rough ride. 4-9 as a duo, no cohesiveness in that team. They lost their identity defensively when they traded Dorian Finney-Smith. Some of Kidd's rotations have been questionable. To me, I don't understand how Powell still starts. You couldn't hurt playing JaVale more minutes with his length and athleticism. Again, you got a guy with such a defensive presence, and
Luka.
He's got that rim running ability. You put it anywhere near the rim, he's gonna finish it. And you don't really need a shot maker like JaVale. If you're gonna play Dwight Powell, who doesn't really have an extended offensive game and the ability to hit a jump shot, you don't really need to have another jump shooting center. So why not throw JaVale in? I saw he played 3 minutes today against the Sixers, or 4 minutes, whatever it was. Might have been slightly more, but I just didn't understand the logic with some of his rotations. Even at times, they took Josh Green out of the lineup after Josh Green was prospering, and then you're playing him 6-7 minutes. I get certain matchups, certain nights, you're going to have different, a different depth chart. You're going to have different lineups going. You're trying to find that balance. But from what Kidd was last year as a coach and how good their defensive identity was, I know that they don't have the same level of defenders on their squad this season, but to me, he just made some very questionable choices. And what stat shocked me the most, Marcus, was that in the season this year, considering how good of a passer Luka Doncic is and even Kyrie Irving can get it going, they're only 28th in assists per game, which really surprised me.
To be honest,
and to me, I don't know if that...
Yeah, I'm not too surprised, to be honest, because, Luka, although, they're both very on ball, you know what I mean? Maybe they might make the occasional, swing, but for the most part, Kyrie can obviously play off the ball, but Luka, I don't know, you kind of need to build a team around him, like LeBron or like a Kobe in the later parts of his career. I don't see him ever really playing off the ball, so I'm not too surprised by that, to be honest.
I'd almost try and have a similar setup. I don't know whether you win a championship, but almost have a similar setup to how the Rockets had it with prime James Harden, where they had basically four shooters. You had Eric Gordon, Ryan Anderson. I'm trying to think who else was on that squad, and then have have a guy who can be a defensive rim protector at your center spot, who can catch lobs, who can really be athletic and grab offensive rebounds from the misses that the shooters from the shots the shooters take. Again, whether that wins you a championship, I still think you'll get more out of that and get the best out of Luka in those situations than you would with the current lineup and the way they have another on-ball dominant player like Kyrie. I'll add in a few more stats before I get your take on this. So, since Kyrie joined the Mavs, they're 7-10. Kyrie in that time is averaging 26 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.2 steals, and he has shooting splits of 49.8%, 39% from 3, and 94% from the free-throw line. And if you look at the stats offensively, they've actually gotten better statistically as a group on the offensive side of the ball since the trade. When he and Kyrie have played together, Luka's stats have actually taken a dip. He's gone to 30.5 points a game, 8.5 rebounds, 7.1 assists, 3.8 turnovers a game, and his shooting splits have gone slightly down from so it's 47%, 34.7 from 3, 79.3% from the free-throw line. So I feel like Kyrie, you chuck him into any situation, I feel like he can adapt. And if you look at it, they're 4-9 as a duo, 7-10 since Kyrie joined. So when Kyrie and Luka didn't play and Kyrie was just on his own, they actually had a winning record when Kyrie was the main guy on that Mavs team. So again, you could say, is Luka the problem? Because Luka really needs to change his game and really work on his off-ball stuff, because yes, we know how dominant he can be on ball, but we want to see that side of Luka where, when he doesn't have the ball, is he moving? You look at guys like Steph Curry and those really elite scorers. when they don't have the ball, they're still moving around. You look at guys like Clay, it only takes him 8 dribbles to hit 60 points. I know they're two different players. I completely understand that. But I love Luka and he's one of my favorite players, but I know that if he really wants to take the next step and he wants to win MVPs, if he wants to take his team to the number 1 seed and to ultimately win a chip, he kind of needs to add different facets to the game that he doesn't have at the moment. And whether that means improving his conditioning. I know every year we say, he looks like he's improved his conditioning, but he gets to a certain point in the year and he's burnt out, or he looks like he's put on weight again. Like, I don't understand it, and it's not a personal attack on Luka. I'm his biggest stan, but at the same time, being his biggest stan, I feel like I have the right to maybe, then be his harshest critic at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
It'll be interesting to see what they do, and I honestly feel like a lot of this trade pressure the fact that the trade actually took place was pressure from the fans of Dallas when they put that painting up in the city of Dallas, and they ended up having that mural where it said Luka needs help, and then Mark Cuban made this audacious move to get Kyrie, knowing that there was some baggage there, knowing that there was those underlying issues with Kyrie. Again, Kyrie's performed, and I think he's maintained that level that he had throughout his whole career, but it's just, again, how they work going forward, whether Kyrie stays there long term, I don't believe he will. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but I'm hoping they make the playoffs, and I'm hoping that they can turn things around and eventually get the franchise and get this team set up in a way which can maximize the talents of guys like Luka and Kyrie, or whoever does decide to join Luka on the journey going forward. And whether even Luka decides to stay there long term, that's a big question mark.
No.
What do you think, Marcus?
100%. Dallas finding themselves out of the play-in is absolutely ridiculous. Like, growing up, Kyrie Irving, like, him and Kobe Bryant earlier on, but kind of in the earlier high school stages, I was all Kyrie Irving, like, massive Kyrie fan. But I've come to the conclusion that after leaving the Cleveland Cavaliers, it's kind of hard to say this, but is Kyrie, is he a pit stop to these organisations? He kind of goes there, drops off, they kind of decline a little bit, but then he leaves and they get better. Like, we saw it with the Celtics. We're kind of seeing this with the Nets, with the new type of era that they're actually having with Mikal Cam, Nick Claxton, who knows, maybe even Cam Thomas. Like, I really do think that Kyrie Irving not staying with these organisations long term has kind of hindered his career, and ultimately teams don't really look at him as the same. Although he's one of the best talents out there in the league, like, the question whether he'll stay there long term affects how long his contract will actually be. So I don't know. I'm glad they made the bold move, obviously, to bring Kyrie Irving to the Dallas Mavericks. I think they had to make that move because look, like Luka Doncic, he wanted help, he got help. They lost guys like Dorian Finney-Smith, who they drafted and developed into these ultimately, like, the perfect role players. But I don't know, Dallas Mavericks, like, everyone's frustrated right now. Luka's complaining about his loss of love for the game. Kyrie and Luka are getting there still. Obviously, you mentioned Kyrie maybe more so than Luka, even though Luka's still performing to quite a high level, just not as much as prior to when they had Kyrie. But I really just think the Mavericks need to focus long term on how they can complement Luka Doncic. And for example, you use the Rockets, which I thought was a great example to use, by the way, but also like the 2009-10 or 2008-9 Lakers. I don't want to harp on the Lakers too much, but when Kobe was struggling to get those championships, afterwards, when he had Shaq on his team, they brought in guys like Lamar Odom, guys like Ron Artest, Pau Gasol, Andrew Bynum they drafted. The list goes on, but yeah, Kyrie with Luka, to me, it's like bringing Allen Iverson to play with Kobe, like two alphas.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds cool on paper, but ultimately long term, how can these two players like work together to compete for a championship over teams like Phoenix, Golden State, Memphis? Like, the West is obviously stacked, so I don't really know how I feel about Dallas. I don't really rate them as contenders, but at the same time, I'm happy they got Kyrie Irving because they kind of had to have a chance at a title. So that's my stance on Dallas.